been there and I've done that, and you know, you won't be seeing me in the sequel to The Usual Suspects anytime soon. But for me, you know, the thing that kind of is weird for me is like even pictures like Freaky Friday. You know, it's a good picture. It's pretty legit. You know what I mean, as far as from a faith-based perspective. You know, but it's just there's just little things that just didn't need to be there. And I'm so interested in being a part of creating content that competes with that stuff, but that is really, well, just, you know, just, I mean, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, you know what I mean? And it just seems to me that if we could stop trying to convince little girls that, you know, they have to be so, I don't know how they dress, you know what I mean? It's just, it just seems that they're just. I guess the accurate idea would be for me that they're so self-conscious. You know, it's just weird. And you know, I have two daughters, and I even see it in them. You know, and part of it is just that little girl thing, which is cool. But part of it is obviously the impact that society has and the media has on the culture. You know, and for me, I'm just really excited to see how in the future God's going to use me to maybe change that, but in such a way that is legitimate from like a secular perspective. That would be interesting. Right on.
Do you think that with the success of the Passion of the Christ, that the door is opening wider now for Christian actors and artists in mainstream entertainment?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I would imagine so. I sure think that the material and the content that is Christian stuff is obviously, you know, I think there's a tsunami-like wave that's swelling that's going to be with a lot more. I mean, you have Revelations on TV now and all kinds of stuff that I think is in development and coming. But I don't know about for the actors. I mean, that'd be great. You know, I think really what's going to be more interesting for me in the future is creating actual full-blown Christian companies that create Christian content that's made by Christians, for Christians, utilizing Christians. I think that would be pretty cool.
What would you say to a young person that's wanting to follow a career into acting as a Christian? And it kind of ties in with what you just said. If your heart is there, do you find that there are other people out there that's accepting Christ, that there may be a bigger future for Christians in the professional industry?
Sure. Yeah, kind of similar to what I just described a little bit ago, which is, you know, I like to tell the kids, you know, more than anything, regardless of whatever my faith is, I tell kids that, you know, the only reason you should ever get into the entertainment industry is because you enjoy it. You know, it's fun, you know, and I've been very blessed. I've made 60 movies, you know, in 15 years, and I can honestly say that every single one of them I did because I knew I was going to have a good time. But as far as Christian kids, you know, the other thing that's kind of wild that I hear all the time from Christian kids is they say, hey, Mr. Baldwin, you know, I want to impact Hollywood. You know, and I don't know, I don't mean to, but I usually take the wind out of their sails pretty quick. You know, I just tell them, you know, look, if you have a talent, you think the Lord's calling you to use that talent, and or you've prayed about it and you've had a confirmation in your prayers that, you know, you're supposed to go and, you know, for faith-based reasons impact Hollywood, then so be it. I mean, you wouldn't want to not be obedient to the Holy Spirit. But, you know, I tell kids who, you know, I see this kind of zeal in their expression and all that, and I just tell them, I say, look, man, you know, if you have an idea to write a film or produce a film or direct a film or act in a film, I tell them, don't take your Jesus idea to the devil and ask for help to get it done. That's really why we haven't seen any success or any kind of a foothold in the secular media really with any kind of Christian content. You know, and you know, I'm currently kind of developing some things right now that not only are material but actually, you know, entertainment media companies that I'm talking about, guys, you know, getting off the ground within the next 3 to 5 years that would be, you know, in no way apologetic about that very thing. You know, I think that what's really the most interesting potential in the future is the social acceptance and commercial potential for non-apologetic Christian companies and content. That's going to be exciting to see that grow.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, some of the films that you have done in the past obviously are not going to be family-friendly oriented films that people might go out and rent. I mean, how do you deal with kind of like some of the past and the things that you've done now that your faith is where it's at, and people come up to you? Do you use that as a door to witness to them if they're unsaved, and or what?
Well, that's an excellent question. Just because I get asked so many kinds of different questions, I mean, the Apostle Paul was a murderer, right? I can't be so bad. But I mean, I've had young conservative Christian kids even come up to me and say, how can you stand there and walk your walk and you start on the reality show Celebrity Mall? Didn't you think that conflicted with your views as a Christian? And really my response to those individuals is I don't think that God called Stephen to try to relate to people who are very difficult to reach. And in order to do that, it kind of gets into that kind of be all things to all people kind of idea. And I don't ever compromise, to the best of my ability, what I believe the Word says. I do have an occasional dirty thought. I can't believe he said that. I'll when several hundred people ask me for my autograph in a 1-hour span, I get a little frustrated, and that's what I'm referring to when I say that, and I'm only human. But for me, I don't ever apologize for who I am. I actually try to convince people that for some reason God's hand was on that and used who I was in the past to kind of prepare me for who I am now. And for me, it's all worked out exactly as it should.
You worked on the Christian movie 6. Real quickly, what are some similarities and differences between working on Christian and secular movies?
Oh, well, Christians are much nicer people. That's kind of true, actually. Well, I mean, obviously, when you talk about like labors of love, you know what I mean? It's very different, I mean, technically, the effort is very similar. It doesn't change as far as the actual logistical problems that you're going to have in film production. But for me, I don't think for me that in the experience and the physical there's much of a difference, you know what I mean? And I think also that probably the only difference would be, crew-wise and as far as atmosphere-wise and motivationally, I think people are really going to be more dedicated and passionate if they're there for the same spiritual reasons. But for me, I haven't had enough experience really with too many Christian films to compare it that much.
Question? Going back, relating to what you just said and going back to where you said you wouldn't advise any of these young kids that talk to you to take their ideas to the devil, right? So would you think it'd be too big of a dream for one of them to think that they could actually start up a Christian-based company in Hollywood to produce everything that they would want to and people like them would want to? Is that a big dream? Too big of a dream?
No, that's actually what I suggest to those kids all the time. I think where Christian media has failed in the last 20, 30 years in this country is, you get these guys who, they raise money, they have good intentions, but then they go to secular distribution entities and sign contracts with them where they lose creative control. And then, for instance, there's a great magazine out there right now called Risen Magazine, which recently the entire ownership was fired because the money that backed the magazine turned around and said no more Christian content. So that's kind of the point that I'm making right now. In addition to that, when it comes to the film business, I mean, obviously, when I say what I'm saying, it's making a dramatic comparison, so to speak. You know what I mean? And for me, I just think that what I like to try to motivate people to do is let's, as Christians, get together and work together, and from the beginning to the middle to the end, see these visions all the way through, and honor them and honor the spirit of them, and not compromise for any reason. That's what I look forward to doing in the future.
And my daughter call you?
Well, she could call my agent, but I think my wife might kill me. Gee, I've even learned that as a Christian, see? All right, I gotta go, guys.
Okay, hang on. One
Right
more
on.
question, and
I met him at a festival in Syracuse, New York in 2002, late in 2002, and then really connected with him, and the idea and the vision for Living It was born at Beach Fest Fort Lauderdale in
which one do you like the best?
Fort Lauderdale, March 2003. And we've been working together ever since. Right on.
Okay. One. Who wanted a line? Okay.
Quick liner? For that middle liner.
One quick liner. Which one?
The middle one.
This one here?
Yes.
Okay.